I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere, ages and ages hence, two roads diverged, and a wood and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all of the difference. Good evening out there, ladies and gentlemen, in podcast land. This is your humble host, Dennis Curl, and this is another edition of The Road Less Traveled. Well, welcome you all aboard tonight. We're gonna ride on the strange train again, definitely. And here's one of the conductors right here. His name is Gerald Fountain, my co-host. Hello, sir.
All
Good
aboard.
evening. Well, all aboard. Yeah. All right. He looks like the old train conductor, always checking his watch here. Are we
I
on time? Are we on time?
think we're
Okay.
on time.
And speaking of time, that's what the show's about tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about time and space, mostly time, as it is relative to space, okay? Absolutely. Uh, Time is sort of a man made thing, isn't it, Gerald? But kind of. There is real time, but it moves differently than the way we gauge it, I think. Something like that.
Right. We're the one that put constraints on it for business and money transactions. And
There's a lot of economics are tied into it, right?
so I guess the
Like,
real question,
if we didn't have time, nobody'd tell you when to quit working, right?
right.
Or
I,
show
I
up
guess
for it.
I guess the real question, what year really is it? Is it 2025 or where are we really at?
Where am I at? Am I in 2025 again? Wait a minute. Yeah, I got that on my watch right there. Yes, sir. 2025. Absolutely. You know what? Though we were talking about that the other day. There's a time that people woke up one day and they were like, what, 15 days short or something?
I know of the 11 days right offhand.
Yeah, lost
And that
11 days.
that would have been
That would make me mad. I want my days back.
That would have been when we switched from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar.
Mm-hmm. That's a dirty trick, isn't it, girl? Going around getting
So
people's.
1582, Pope Gregory, decided to realign the calendar to more align with Easter and their celebrations. So we left Julius Caesar's calendar, and there was an 11-day difference they had to make up for.
And they were doing that, juggling time around, trying to get it in line with the doctrine of the church, right?
Yep. They wanted to more align with Easter, to how they celebrated it.
Mm-hmm.
So you went to bed October 1582. You went to bed on Thursday the 4th and woke up Friday on the 15th.
That's why I say that's a dirty trick. Fooling people doing that stuff. Time is precious, right? More precious than gold or silver. You can't buy time, but my gosh, people can steal your time. What about that?
Yeah. I mean, they just erase it right off a calendar. Look how easy it was.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Definitely. Kind of like, here's the interesting thing about time and space, which are relative to each other, definitely, as Einstein would say. Uh, in outer space, if traveling, you have to still gauge how you're traveling with your own time system. But yet, time is moving, but it moves slower.
Right.
Than it does when you're on a planet spinning around, and moving through space. Now, here's my question, okay? I'm gonna boggle your mind a little bit here. Why are we moving faster on Earth, spinning around through space, than we are just flying through space? You know what I'm saying? In your own ship. What's going on with that?
Right. I must have to do with gravity.
Exactly. gravity is slowing us down or something like that, or speeding us up, or whichever the case may be.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe it's the low oxygen content.
Well, how many days does it take for Earth to get around the sun, Drew?
365.
But if there's a leap year, you got what?
Yeah, you gotta add
366 days.
you gotta add a day,
Where
and
did
that
that
was
get
another
day come
problem.
from?
That was another problem they had to
Yeah.
do with these calendars. They
And,
had to figure out leap year.
mhm. That's weird. But like you said, and I think Julius Caesar came along and he kind of screwed things up too. He wanted a month named after him. That's where we get August at, folks. And in order to create August, they had to take days away from all the rest of the months, right, Drew?
Well, I think I mean July is for Julius.
Yeah, that's another one. But August was named after Caesar
Augusta,
Augustus.
right?
Yeah. Uh-huh. But I'm just saying, I think if I'm not mistaken, July is named after Juno, the goddess Juno or something. But anyway, the god Juno. Anyway, I remember reading about that where they took so many days out of each month and created the month of August. But they still screwed around with the calendar because, like you're talking about with the Julian calendar, there's really supposed to be 13 months because there are what, 13 cycles of the moon.
Yep.
What happened?
It didn't line up. They wanted to mess up our cycle and being in tune with nature and the stars and the four seasons.
Mhm.
So they threw in that other calendar to mess us all up. Otherwise, we would have been right in sync with everything in nature.
Well, see, now that's the way people used to gauge time. The summer solstice. That's probably one of the reasons why they had Stonehenge. Stonehenge is like kind of a big timepiece. And they could tell when the summer solstice was and the summer officially began. And then you had the winter solstice when the winter officially began. There were certain signs in the heaven that told you these things. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That was the one big timepiece that men had back before they had calendars, clocks, watches, and all this other stuff. They were still gauging time by the heavens. That's interesting, that they were still looking for time in all the wrong places, Gerald.
Yep. Because when we went to the Gregorian, just like this picture shows, when we went to the Gregorian calendar, New Year's used to be on April 1st when spring is coming, flowers are opening up and budding, and it's like a fresh and new of the earth. And that's why we were lined up on that particular day. But then Gregory moved it to January 1st and turned April 1st into Fool's Day because they started making fun of people that were still celebrating the old calendar, still going by it, where you had the new year on April 1st. So he turned that into Fool's Day.
That was they fooled everybody into that. Yeah, definitely. And here's the interesting thing. Some blue eyed here. Mandy mentions the fact there's 13 cycles of the moon. There are also 13 cycles of the menstrual cycles for women, and also when you're ovating, there's 13 cycles of that, and the farmers knew this with their cattle, right, Gerald?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
They had let's say I said we were in tune with Mother Nature, if you want to call it, Gaia, the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I think they wanted to throw it off on purpose.
That's screwy. Really is screwy. And it's obvious that nature shows you what the real time is. Now that's the very famous turtle. Everybody take note of that turtle shell. It's 13 segments.
Here,
That's one. That's for every month, supposedly.
I'll bring this one up. It's a little more clear, then we'll go back to the other one.
Yeah.
So if you count the inner segments of the turtle shell, you have 13 for the 13 moons, the 13 lunar cycles. Then on the outer shell, you have the 28 little segments, which would match each day for the month.
And of course, we were talking about that for the show. The American Indians believe that the universe is on the back of a turtle and moves through time and space on the back of a turtle. The turtle is venerated in many different American Indian tribes, by the way.
This one's
very legend.
This one's kind of counting backwards compared to the other one, but you had like the first month, which is the elder moon, the second month, which is the eagle moon, third month, the goose moon, frog moon, but they had them by the seasons. Also, there's alternate names for these. So they had like the harvest moon and the blue moon.
Well, you know what that is out there, don't you, Gerald? That's a calculator.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That's what that is. Yeah. So it's interesting too. This kind of ties in with the Vikings, and we've talked about that before. And that's very fascinating. The sunstone of the Vikings. Supposedly, it was really what it was a magnetic compass. But that's why you had a sextant on ships. You could take that sextant, aim it at the horizon, and look at the stars and all that. You could determine what day it was, what month it was, where you were at, and your coordinates, according to diagrams and all that. That's fascinating stuff there, man.
Absolutely. I mean, you were just talking about the cycles of the month for the women and health, and we were talking about spring and fall lining up on a certain date. Well, if you went by the 13-month calendar, the beginning of the month would always be Sunday on the 1st, and the last of the month would always be on Saturday, the 28th, no matter which month.
Well, isn't it?
And now, if you were born...
Let me ask you this right quick. I might be wrong. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. But isn't there, like, if you do it the right way, there's 13 months all equal out to what, 30 days or 29 days? I forget.
Well, they went with 28 days, and then you still had to account for leap year. So there was a day of rest.
Oh, okay.
Just like in the Bible where the Lord rested after he made the earth, there's a day of rest that has to be built into this calendar also.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating stuff. Here's another thing. I got a sundial out in my garden, and I love to set that thing. Sometimes in the summer I'll set it, especially when I'm outside looking around, I can keep an eye on it. And it will give you very precise time if you fix it right. If you got it fixed right. And that's another thing, I've often wondered, did they have little sundials they could carry around with them? You can make one, It's not that hard.
I think they did have traveling sundials, little ones.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, every major town or community had a sundial out in the middle.
The only thing is, you got to have bright sunlight for it to work. It's solar generated.
On a full moon, I bet it would work.
Say, well, what time is it? I don't know. It's cloudy today.
But see, that's the thing. You use the sun. You use the sun for the daytime. You use the moon and the stars for the nighttime. So you still, even sailors could tell what time it was by the moon and the stars.
Well, now look, now you go back to the Roman Empire for a moment, okay? The Roman Empire could tell time. And here's my question about that. How did they get so precise with their time? Because they had the day broken down into, I think, 12 watches. And the first watch, went from dawn to the first watch was like till 9 o'clock in the morning. The second watch was from 9 to 12. And the third watch was from 12 to 3. And that was, of course, supposedly when Jesus died, he died on the third watch, the third,
Right.
hour.
Yep.
And then, how did they know that? That was pretty precise, wasn't it? I mean, did it checking their sundials or, you know?
What I want to know is when they first started keeping track of dates and important events, how did they start? How did they know what year it was before they actually wrote it down or came up with it? Who is the first one
Well,
to say, okay, this is number one?
Mathematicians have been around for thousands of years. The Mayans were expert mathematicians, and it could be that some mathematicians can, figure that out. They went back and figured out how many days, whatever, how it came out corresponding to mathematics. That's possible. And what is the language of the universe? A lot of people say, "What are you talking about? The language of the universe is what, Gerald? Mathematics." Yeah.
But I mean, even they would have to agree what time was, what length of the day is, and the month is, and the year is to come up with a even close or accurate description where they start from. So somebody had to do a lot of math, and I mean, maybe it's accurate and maybe it's not.
And that's exactly where the hourglass comes in. It really is an hour. I do have one here somewhere. It really does take an hour for it to. But here's the weird thing: it can slow down or speed up if you've got too much humidity in the room. By the way,
right?
But they had stuff like, and I saw one time. I don't know if you've ever seen this, Gerald, but there was a thing they found in ancient Greece that they could. It involved water, and it was like a water pitcher. And it was so how long to fill up, and then it tipped.
Yeah.
And it was like exactly an hour for it to tip over. So they could tell time with the water wheel thing.
There's one somewhere in a university or somewhere that's still functional that's working to this day. That all they have to do is because of evaporation, they have to fill up the little container ever so often. I don't know what it is, but it still keeps accurate time. So here's another.
I've heard of that.
Here's another
It's
mystery.
still working. Yeah.
When they changed over to the new calendar, they had September is a 9th month, but September or Sep means 7. October means 8. Yeah, that was our 10th month. November means 9, but that's our 11th month. December means 10, and that's our 12th month. So right there, they're not even going by what they're naming the months.
Latin words meaning that, yeah. Well, that's where we get also, the days of the week, the days of the week are named after mostly the gods and goddesses. Like, Thursday is Thor's day. Friday is Frida. Freya was the wife of Odin. Freya is Friday. And Saturday, that's named after the god Saturn.
Right.
Sunday, of course, commemorates the sun. So it's named after certain things like gods and stuff like that. That's interesting too. A lot of people don't even know where the days of the week names come from.
Right. So if we go to the 13-month, 28-day, and 1 day of rest or one neutral day, you would start your month instead of January be April, and then September, October, November, December would actually line up with their Latin meaning.
Well, we could, Gerald, do like the ancient Jews. They had a day, every 7th year they had a jubilee, and on that day they would, get all the debts. Remember that?
Everything would be reset.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And of course, the Jewish people believe that the day ends at sundown. And and the day comes back at sun up. So they go by the actual thing of the sun and not the hours. You know. And so the end of the day for the Jewish day is sunset.
Right.
And
And
another day starts. Yeah.
The Ethiopians, they have a calendar. It still goes by the lunar cycles. So their year is different than ours. They're on
Pretty
a different.
accurate then.
If we're on 2025 and they're on a different year.
I mean, it would be a little bit more accurate than ours if it has 13 cycles. They may be, since Ethiopia is tied very directly to a lot of the Israelite stuff. It could be they got that from the Jews. I don't know. Yeah, January is named after Juno, the two-faced god. Yeah, well, Juno was, I think, also like a uh, Janus. That's where you get that name, Janus.
Right.
Oh yeah, if they hadn't had the gods and stuff, they couldn't have named it. They've been looking for some other names, don't they? Mercury and all that. Here's what's confusing though: when the Romans got a hold of the gods, they changed their names on them.
Yeah.
Confused everybody. The Greeks had the gods, and when the Romans took over, the Greeks stole their gods, but they changed their names.
Well, plus every time they had a new Caesar, they had to change everything because they were considered gods.
Yeah. He wasn't mortal like the rest of them.
So this is a copy of what a Gregorian calendar would look like.
I remember that very famous horror movie. I used to have to watch it, The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And he made his own calendar, and he would so every day he'd get up, he'd mark the day off. That was the only way he could keep track of what day it was. They weren't making calendars anymore, but he was making his own calendar.
Yep, we showed that movie on our movie night.
In the story, he said he really didn't know if that was the real day or not because he might have missed a day. That'd be a good one for your Rumble channel there, Gerald.
We already played it
on Earth.
We already played that one. That was like number 3 or number 4 movie.
Yeah, I like that one. That's a good one. I'd love to see Charlton Heston, the Omega Man, too. That was a good one, too. Yeah.
Well, it's basically the same movie.
Well, they are. They just a remake. It's a remake, But they just did it. It goes a little bit better with the story. Here's what it is on that, and we'll move on when I get this said. It's a great story. The real name of the story is I Am Legend by Richard Matheson, who's a great writer, by the way. I've talked to his daughter. She's a real nice gal. Richard Matheson wrote tons of stuff back in the day. He is very well known, very famous writer. Anyway, he wrote his own, story, and it does have the vampire element to it, But when they remade it into the Omega Man, he talks about the vampires in the Vincent Price movie. They are vampires. He has to put crosses up, garlic, and mirrors on the doors to keep them away. But now when they remade it to the Omega Man, they kind of did away with the vampire thing and sort of made them mutants,
Right.
That's the one thing I didn't like about that because they were vampires at the beginning, definitely. But then they even tried to make that gosh awful thing with Will Smith. That was terrible. They tried to make it. They named that I Am Legend, but it has nothing to do with the real story at all. I don't know where they get that. That's Hollywood, though, trying to make more money.
I think they named it the original after the novel or the book, and then they just went off of like the Omega Man and tried to improve on it, kind of.
Well, now the Omega Man is pretty close to the story, but they changed some important elements. And of course, the very great actor Charlton Heston. Nobody else could have done the Omega Man as well as he did it. It was a great movie, but none of the movies ever made has got real close to the novel itself. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Here's what got me about that whole story. There he sits night after night. Them vampires outside banging on the doors and when they come out, Morgan, come out. And there he sits slowly going start raving mad. He's going crazy little bit by
Yep.
little bit. Yeah. That is a great story, man. Really great. But anyway, back to time. Okay. Back to time.
Well, we have a Blazer. Blazer wants to hear me in my Gandalf voice say, "You shall not pass." So I guess I'll give it a shot. You shall not pass. There you go.
You hear that? You bowed off. You hear that? Okay. The Balrogs, those things are mean anyway.
So I have a few ancient
I seen a
calendars.
movie last night. I was watching it. Sort of a kids movie. What's the name of that movie? It was I can't think of the name of it now. But anyway, the guy that played Golem, in Lord of the Rings, was in this movie. And he plays weird stuff. He looks weird anyway.
Right.
He's weird. That's why he gets all the weird moves. But he looks like something's like the Joker in this, and he's got his little mouth cut open. He looks bad. And anyway, I'll find out what the name of that is. It was a pretty good kid. It's kind of a kids movie, but it's a spy movie, And, it was pretty good. Yeah, I'll get the name of it. It was great. But it's where this young boy, he's a teenager, and he's filling in for his uncle, who is a world class master spy, sort of like James Bond. Well, yeah, we're gonna have to get you a cloak with a hood on it, there, Gerald, and a staff. Yeah, yeah, yep. We will call him. Are y'all ready, folks? Gerald the Gray.
Oh. Well, that fits.
Gray. Andy Serkis. Yeah, that's his name. I couldn't think of his name. He's got a weird. He looks like Golem in real life, by the way, a little bit. That's where they got the inspiration from, right?
Yep.
Think of Soylent Green a lot later. Soylent Green's one of my favorite Charlton Heston movies. It's people, I tell you, it's people. Okay, absolutely. We got very close to that happening, and it still may happen. Okay, folks, there may be a real Soylent Green in the future. Okay. We start running out of food, we'll see what happens. Actually, Elon Musk says that we need to have more babies, that mankind is actually dying out.
Well, yeah, Chinese put that limit on how many females a family could have, and they started killing their population. They finally had to bend the rules, otherwise they were going to be a dying race.
Yep. That may be true. He's a smart fellow. He knows what he's talking about most of the time. But here's the interesting thing about time, Gerald. Getting back to time here. If you and I get on a rocket ship and we blast off to the nearest star system, Alpha Centauri, and we come back and we're doing this at the speed of light now, okay, which is what, 298,000 miles per second, okay, and we come back, then Jane is 100 years older than when you left her. But you have only aged what, about 4 or 5 years, something like that. That's weird. That is time and space, right?
Yeah, they had a problem with the twin astronauts where one was on Earth and one was up in space, and they aged differently. So that's how they did that study between the twin astronauts, and the one that was in space for a long period of time started having health problems compared to when he was on Earth.
Well,
He didn't.
I hate to burst everybody's bubble on this, but mankind is really not meant to travel amongst the stars in the form that we're in right now, because that radiation out there is deadly. Eventually, it will kill you. You and I, Gerald, cannot live on Mars very long unless we had some kind of container to live in, some kind of containment area that would keep the radiation levels down, or we would soon die. Okay.
Yep.
And that's a fact now, folks. I'm not making that up. And so we're not really meant to be in outer space in the form that we're in right now. So I think that only true beings that actually live in space, most of them will either be adaptable to that, or there's some type of incorporeal body or spiritual body of some sort. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. I really think it's the firmament, on Earth that we're protected, not only from the radiation or not all radiation. Obviously, the sun still hits us with radiation, and Earth elements hit us with radiation. But I think we're protected when they go through the barrier, supposedly, of space, then they're not protected anymore.
We're existing where we're supposed to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you're in outer space, you're somewhere you're not supposed to be. You're not really supposed to be doing that. But like I say now, if you had the right kind of ship, and here's something you don't really hear about. Okay, this is true now. I'm not making this up. If you stay on the International Space Station long, you have to take kidney pills because it will start damaging your kidneys. That's what that radiation does to you. And yet, that's even shielded greatly in that ship, okay? It's still messing around with your body in very bad ways.
Maybe if they're in those rockets and stuff and they're going with all that G-force through the radiation belt and all that stuff, maybe that's messing up their metabolism.
And of course, a lot of this radiation is coming from, guess what? The sun. And when the sun finally gets to us, after it's filtered through the ozone and all these other things, it's filtered out to a certain extent. But that's where you get sunburn at, right, Gerald?
Absolutely.
What is sunburn? It's really a radiation burn. It is in a form,
Yep.
That's what it is. I've gone out a lot of days on a hot day and said, woo, boy, that star is hot today. That's what it is. It's a star, folks, okay? Medium-sized star, too, on that. But anyway. But that's the weird thing about it. We are, unfortunately, prisoners of time. You know what? What was that one of the poets said? I love this. Are you ready for this? Time is a fire that we burn. There you go. That's exactly what it is. It's a fire in which we burn. In other words, it's time as we're going through it is destroying us a little bit by a little bit. That's the way it works, folks. That's why you get old and die.
Just like when you burn the candle at both ends.
Mm-hmm. And I've talked to doctors about this. Nobody ever really dies of old age. Did you know that, Gerald? You just your body wears out.
Yep.
So it's not the years, it's the mileage, as Indiana Jones said.
It's all about the trip.
Mm-hmm. But my favorite one is Tempus Fugit. Do you know everybody knows what that means, right, Drew? Tempus Fugit. You see that on clocks, old grandfather clocks used to have that on top. That is Latin for, are you ready? Time flies.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely true. It just flies by.
Absolutely, especially when you're having fun. Time flies, especially when you're having fun. You're enjoying something you do. But if it's something you don't, if you're sitting in a doctor's office, it immediately slows down. You ever notice that?
I noticed that in grade school, sitting in when it turned springtime and summer, and it was nice outside, and you were stuck in school. Boy, did
That's
the
what I
time go slow.
used to tell people. The longest part of the day is right before quitting time. That's the way it goes. Time is relative in your mind to a lot of things. It definitely is. Blazer said that time flies like an arrow, fruit flies like a banana. Yeah, I like a banana myself too once in a while. So that's the way you look at it. Definitely, aluminum is suffocating. Aluminum, that's spraying aluminum, folks. They, we talked about this before, Joe. They are trying to change the very atmosphere of this planet for some reason, and I think there's a very nefarious purpose behind this. They are trying to change the very atmosphere of this planet for some reason. Okay, and I think we know what it is, don't we, Joe?
Absolutely. It's all about control,
Mm-hmm.
depopulation.
And certain entities want to change this planet so they can live on it better. And it don't matter if it kills all us off or not. No matter to them. It must sort of a, killing two birds with one stone kind of thing for them, right?
Yeah, I mean
No,
they got to keep a certain amount of us. That's why they only like the Georgia Guidestones, where they had to get us down to a certain number of the population, because they're going to need people to be workers, because they're not going to be the ones doing the work or the yard work or whatever needs to be done, the manual labor.
I heard that O'Harris woman do that speech. You remember that, Drew? Well, she said if it wasn't for abortion, we would probably, we would be living worse. We would have too many people, and there would be food shortages. She was sitting there actually, making an excuse for abortions and stuff. So I mean,
Marino Harris.
lizard men here today, going tomorrow. Yeah.
Gorn.
We got Blazer on a roll tonight.
Yep.
Kirk would like that one about the Gorn. So the others can breathe here. Terraforming, Head Trip says. Absolutely. Probably reptilians like it better that way. I like that song. What's the name of that? It used to be Constantinople, Remember that song?
Oh yeah.
Real happy little song, yeah. And it said they used to call it let's see, what was it called? They called it New Amsterdam's what they used to call New York. They changed it to
Yeah.
New York. I don't know. They just like it better that way. I like that song, by the way. It's pretty neat. It's now Constantinople. I wouldn't join their club maybe if they invited me with open arms. Well, they will invite you, and you will have to take the invitation someday, whether you want it or not, if you're not careful. That's the way these guys work. It's all about control, Roger.
That's right. All about control.
Can we discuss how to overcome the agenda? Well, how to overcome the agenda. Well, here's I've talked about this before. You and I both have talked about this before. If you want to overcome the darkness, and this is what we're talking about, spiritual darkness here. You got to overcome it with what, Gerald? Gerald knows what it is. The light. You got to overcome the darkness with light. So you have more light in you than you got darkness. You're gonna like it
Absolutely.
better that way. Mm-hmm. That's how you overcome their agenda. That's the only way. But it starts with you. Here's the bad thing about it, Gerald. Nobody wants to take the effort to begin. Nobody wants to do the effort. You want to get there. You're like little kids in the back of the car. Are we there yet? You want to get there, but you don't want to do the driving. That's the way that goes. Until we get over that lump, we might be doing a whole lot better. That's one big bump right there. Nobody wants to do the driving. Are we there yet? They came after light workers first, though. Well, they always come after light workers first because they're the threat. They're going to always eliminate the threat first, folks. If you're a little peon walking down a little road they want you to walk down on, fettered up in their little chains they got on you, they're not going to bother you. They got you right where they want you. That's what somebody asked me the other day. I had a woman write me a nice letter, and I answered a letter to her today. And she was saying, why this is going like this? I said, well, because you're a threat to them. You're going to be attacked as time goes on and on, okay, folks? This is pure and simple. 2 + 2 = 4 here, okay? Nothing hard about this. Don't take a rocket scientist to understand what I'm about to tell you, okay? Look, further and further we get into the last days, the more harder the spiritual attacks are going to become. I've noticed an increase in the last couple of years. I get attacked on a daily basis now. It didn't used to be that way, folks. But it's happening. And that's a sure sign, one of the sure signs that tells me, hey, we are approaching an intersection here. Yeah.
Yep.
But that's the way it's going to happen, and people say, I don't want that to happen. No, things are bad enough now. I said, well, I'm sorry. You better buckle up, Buttercup, because you ain't seen nothing yet. You think it's hard now? Huh. I heard a preacher say that one time years ago, Gerald. Said, if you can't live for the Lord now, what in the Lord's name are you going to do when the Antichrist shows up?
Oh.
You're going to really have it then. But I'm not getting on that tonight. That's another story for another time. But anyway.
That's another show.
That's another show. But anyway, that's what's happening. That's the state of the world nowadays, actually, unfortunately. But like I said, Gerald, nobody wants to drive.
Well,
and that's the way it was back in the old days with science, mathematics, and all this stuff. Most people didn't even think about that stuff, Now, you had people like Dr. John Dee and some of these other free-thinking people that were out, thinking outside of the box. You had the mathematicians. Look at the Mayans and the Aztecs. They were smart people, buddy. Okay? But yet they lacked a true social consciousness. Think about that a minute, folks. I mean, when you're unaliving thousands of people in one day because you open a new temple and you got to have hearts for all that stuff, That's not a good social moral compass, is it, Gerald? Anyway, that spells the end of your civilization, no matter how smart it is, okay? And that, unfortunately, can happen with civilizations, right, Gerald?
That's right. Just look at the Aztecs. If you had a good heart, they most likely they would have took it out of your body anyway.
Oh yeah, they really like a good heart. The younger, the better. I think it was one ceremony they had where they opened a temple, and I think in 2 weeks they unalived 38,000 people. That's cutting a heart out once every minute or two. That's horrific to think about. And yet these people died happily thinking they were going to their heaven because they were giving their heart to the temple, right?
Yeah.
That's even worse when you think about it. Yeah, they were okay with that.
The only difference between them and the Jewish people, at least the Jewish people, were killing
Yeah,
were
people
killing animals for the sacrifice instead of humans or
an
virgins.
animal, mostly sheep, mostly sheep. Huh? That's where we
So
get
they
that term.
were
What sheep to the what? Slaughter.
so basically they were doing the same thing. I mean, if you read the historical, they sacrificed thousands of them in one day.
Well, that's what God told Cain. You have spilt your brother's blood, and now the earth will cry out for it. It will demand it now. Blood sacrifice. The blood is the what? Life.
Blood is life.
And I think to a certain extent, your soul is spiritually in your blood too, sort of speaking. It is your DNA, right? I don't know. That's an interesting theory. There's Bigfoot dwarfs in the house, everybody. Thought I'd warn you. Bigfoot dwarfs in the house.
Dwarf alert.
Anyway, yeah, here's the thing about time, okay, that is interesting to me. It can bend sometimes in space. Now here's another weird theory. Time bends. So if you're going from point A to point B, okay, at a certain amount of speed at a certain time, usually the shortest distance between 2 points is what? A straight line.
Straight
But
line.
not in space. Not in space. That doesn't hold to be true. You can bend time and maybe even get there quicker if you bend time. That's freaky, isn't it? Think about that.
Well, it's still, if you look at it as a picture, it's still, you're taking a flat surface and you're bending it over on top of itself, and there's still a straight line between A and B, but you got a different way of warping
Looking
that
at it.
dimension.
It's your
A Mobius strip.
it's the way you're observing it too, Absolutely. It's wild. That's wild. And here's another way to bend time would be to what? We talked about this before with portals. I like to call them sort of like stepping through the curtain or the veil. You know what I mean?
Right.
You kind of part the curtain and step through. You have gone from point A to point B beyond time. So you're stepping through time and space. So therefore, space and time are relative, as Einstein said. Okay. Because you're not only cheating space by doing it, you're also what? Cheating time. So instead of getting in a rocket ship going from A to B, you just step through. Here's the ultimate speed, faster than the speed of light. Guess what that is? That is the speed of thought. If you could think yourself on the moon right now, boom, and be there, that's faster than 1,000 times faster than the speed of light. That's the speed of thought. If you could do that, you could rule the universe.
Yeah, that's why all the movies time jumpers are a threat to everybody.
Time jumpers. Time Master Tim. There used to be a game I played. It was that, Joe. You ever heard of that, Time Master Tim? What it
No.
was, he was a time traveler, and he was going back in time trying to save the dinosaurs. And we get the little dinosaur eggs and bring them back. But this spider would try to beat you back and eat the eggs.
Oh.
Time Master Tim. That was a great little game, by the way, folks. I think that was a Texas Instruments game or something like that. But anyway, I used to love to play it because it was hard as the dickens to get those little dinosaurs saved. I never did save all those dinosaurs. I feel sorry about it to this day. I really feel bad about it. Time Master Tim. Now, of course, on the series, uh, Doctor Who, you have Time Lords.
Right.
They're time travelers, and they sort of rule over the time traveling stuff. They're sort of the supervisors of this. And the number one rule of time is you don't mess it up. You don't mess with time, the space time continuum, where you could really unravel the universe when you think about it. Okay. So you'd have to be very, very careful how you travel through time, supposedly. And that's why they had Time Lords. They regulated that, you know, that time travel thing.
Right.
But I remember seeing a Ray Bradbury story one time where they had a time machine, and for a price, if you were rich, they would send you back into the age of the dinosaurs, and you could kill a dinosaur, and as a trophy, say I did that, I killed a Tyrannosaurus Rex and all that. But you had to collect the bullet. You had to go cut the bullet out of the dinosaur. You couldn't leave nothing behind.
Right.
And one guy forgot to do it, and when they got back from time killing the dinosaur, it came back to a whole new world ruled by Nazis and everything. Because they forgot and left one bullet
Oh
in
my.
time. Somehow or another, it messed up time. You just don't fool around with time, folks. Okay? It's not a good idea. Bad things can happen. But I always like what Doctor Who always said. One day he was walking in the door and he saw himself walking back out the door on the other side. And he turned to his girl with him and said, I hate it when that happens. Pass yourself in time. That's freaky. Think about it. You really would be beside yourself, wouldn't you, Jerome?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, head trip, about abortion. It is a form of eugenics. Okay, that's what it basically really is. The woman that came out with Planned Parenthood was a eugenist. Okay, she only thought certain people should be on this planet and other ones should not, depending upon their color or whatever race they were. Hitler embraced this greatly. The master race thing. Okay, it's eugenics. So that's what it is, and it's not a good thing. It's something that has no heart or soul to it. You look at the people as being nothing but numbers. Eugenics. You could say that, what, Gerald? 5,000 babies die every day from abortion. That's just a number. You're talking about lives here.
Absolutely.
But these people don't see it that way. And when you dehumanize things, folks, that's very, very evil right there. Okay, you're on the edge of some of the darkest evil there is, because when you dehumanize things, you take away that person's humanity. They're no more than a number or thing to you, to be used or discarded for whatever purpose. That is not a good way to look at your fellow human being. But that's the number one thing serial killers do. They dehumanize their victims. They don't look upon them as people with feelings that can show pain and fear when you torture them. They just think that's something fun to do. When you don't have any more feeling in your heart, I've seen people like that, girl. I had a little girl one time. She would love to cut her arm all the time. I asked her, why did you do that? Why do you do that? She said, because I can't feel anything. I want to feel something.
Oh,
And
that's
she
pretty
wasn't talking
sad.
about the cutting part. She was talking about the pain. She wanted to feel the pain. And I asked
Right.
her, I said, why do you feel the pain? Want to feel the pain? Because she said, I know I'm alive. I feel like I'm alive. And You get in that kind of a situation, you be in bad, bad trouble, spiritually, mentally as well. But that's all these people do. They see little babies as numbers. That's what you are. The government. What's your social security number is? That's what you are. You're a number. You're not Daryl Stanley to them. You're just a number. And a tax write-off thing. Do you get enough taxes out? Eventually, when the day comes, they can't get any taxes out of you. You're then what? You're no longer an asset.
You're a burden.
Absolutely. You can't get no money out of you. You're no longer an asset to humanity to them. That's it. Numbers, numbers, numbers. And that's what time is, numbers. We look at the time that goes by, it's 9 o'clock or it's 8 o'clock. But we never value the fact we've lost a whole hour of our lives, gone forever. You never get it back. And that's why time is much more precious than silver or gold. And when somebody gives you their time, they're giving you the greatest gift of all, just about. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They give you their time. They've given you something very precious. Don't squander it and don't waste that gift. Because we all, got to realize no matter where we at, how young or old we are, we're running out of time. I like what Doc Holliday says in Tombstone. So, how you doing, Doc? And I'm dying. How are you? He knew he had a little bit of time left. He knew he was running out of time. We're all running out of time, okay? Well, no matter if we live to be 110 years old, eventually you're going to run out of time. And that's the curse of time right there, isn't it? That all your pictures there, girl?
I have some of different ancient calendars.
Mm-hmm.
We can go through them a little bit.
Okay.
I had this up earlier, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it. This is the Babylonian calendar.
Oh, yeah.
And it has their
smart people. They were very smart people. Yeah.
it has their constellations and their zodiacs, how they did their months. And this is actually a Babylonian astronomy. So this is actually got their this like we were talking on the outer rim, they got their constellations and when the stars align. And so for an ancient civilization, they had a lot of technology and mathematics to figure all that out. Then we got the Aztec calendar.
Oh, yeah. I got one of those hanging on my wall over here. Fascinating stuff here, man. Like I say, they were excellent mathematicians.
Yeah, this one has outer rings and inner rings, depending on whether you're judging by the zodiacs and the centuries, and they have little markers in here and depicting on what happened during that time period. So they mark
The
their
wheel.
events.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting they depict it as a wheel, right? It just turns.
Right. Is that why our clocks and watches, the faces are round? Then we got the Mayans.
Oh yeah.
And it's basically the same thing. They have their constellations, and then if you look at the whole thing and compare the two, if you look by this outer wheel and the outer wheel over here, some of the symbols are similar and basically the same concept. Here is a Chinese astronomy
Blazer
where
said
they
if you
had
calendar stays unnumbered. Yep.
they also had the constellations and the stars and the months all charted out depending on I don't know what this all says, but they obviously did, and they had it all marked out depending on what year, what century, and
Well, that's what it says in the book of Genesis. Well, God told Adam, these will be for times and seasons. You know, I think man has always looked to the sky for time, and and I've said that to a lot of people before, being philosophical about it, I guess. But if you want to know what eternity really is, then go out on a clear, starry night and look straight up. It goes on forever. That is an eternity to me.
I think that's the real reason why they got rid of the Georgia Guidestones, because if you look through that astronomical hole, you can see the star Polaris always in that hole, visible at all times.
Well,
I think people are starting to question and figuring out stuff on that Georgia Guidestone, so they had to get rid of it.
I visited the Guidestones years ago before the guy blew up, and I've always wondered about that, Gerald. It was either one of two reasons, or maybe both. The reason why they blew it up: one, there may have been something in there they wanted to cover up. There might have been some truth that they didn't want out, or number two, it was ignorance, or maybe it was both. But I don't know. What do you think?
That's what I think. I think because of they keep telling us how we're spinning through space and everything's moving and going through the galaxies, but yet if you look through that hole, you could see the Northern Star or Polaris constantly, never moves out of that hole in that Georgia Guidestone. Then plus I think there was hidden meanings inside of the language that was written on the tablet, so they had to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the Chinese zodiac for the New Year's. And right now we're in the year of the snake. Next year will be year of the horse.
Oh, the horse, huh?
Yeah, we're in the snake this year. Last year we were the dragon.
Year of the dragon.
And so you can go, I mean, just like a perpetual calendar, you can go back and figure out what animal or what zodiac, as far as the Chinese, what you were born under, what sign were you born under for the Chinese? This is a Jewish calendar between 1927 and 1948. So you can go.
Everything reads from right to left in the Jewish thing, folks. We read from left to right. They read from right to left. Always remember that when you're reading Jewish stuff, it always ends on the outside of the page.
Yeah. So this is a Roman.
He's just the same way, if I'm not mistaken. I think it goes from right to left too, if I'm not mistaken.
What does?
Chinese.
Yeah, Chinese and Japanese are similar, but one goes horizontal and one goes vertical.
Yeah, yeah, one of them goes up and down. That may be Mandarin, I think, if I'm not mistaken. There's different dialects.
So this is a Roman calendar, a section of it, and you can see you have the crab and the lion, Leo, and
Mhm. Yeah, the zodiac, the very famous signs of
so
the zodiac.
this is their zodiac and calendar, and it's all part of a cube.
And of
So you
course,
got
the constellations that designate these zodiac signs, they move as well, or they're actually not moving. It's us that's moving. But anyway, uh, they're moving though, and that can be times, and that's like a certain zodiac sign goes into a house. Now, what that means is a certain position as aligned with other zodiac signs. Like what's that song? The age of Aquarius when the moon is in the seventh house. You know, and Jupiter aligns with Mars. Uh,
right.
it's the age of Aquarius. That's sort of time too, measured the way it's measured. So I'm saying different houses of different months that these zodiac signs go in. That's fascinating stuff.
And this is just a fancy timeline, basically showing all the dispensations and the times when we had the different calendars through history.
And these things probably were none of them were concurrent to each other. Every different region had its own different calendar, probably, or its influence. Like in certain Greek states had the same calendar, and some of them didn't. Like some of them had certain different gods that they worshipped, and some of them didn't. That's just the way that went. And what's the correlation to that today is the fact that we have so many different time zones in the United States and in the world. Like you and I, Gerald, right now are sitting in two different time zones. Uh, where we're at, perpendicular
Right.
to where we're at. Yeah, and that can be downright confusing. You know. And
Well,
here's
just
another thing, and they're wanting to outlaw this daylight savings time thing. Well, I wish they would. I wish they would put the time on one certain thing and leave it alone. I don't think they ever will, though, but they need to. But anyway, we're gonna always have time zones because it's perpendicular to what space. You're in a whole different area of the country than I'm in. That's why we in different time zones. Well, right now, where you're at, the sun has just set, probably, right? What about here?
yeah, it's 9 p.m. right now, so it actually is darker, kind of dark here.
And it's dark outside right now for me as if it were midnight. Okay. It's
Yeah,
been dark for quite a while.
the sun just went down just a little bit ago for us, so we're
And the
just
sun's still
starting.
shining in California, though.
Yep, they're 2 hours difference than we are, or
Mm-hmm.
than us in Central Time Zone.
Well, you got Eastern, you got Central, you got Mountain, and you got West Coast.
Yep.
4 different time zones is the deal. And we're not even talking about Hawaii, right?
No, that's not even talking about
Pacific time.
the Aleutian Islands or Hawaii
Pacific time, I guess, whatever they call it.
or two countries or two continents that are US and Russia is divided by a timeline right in the middle of two islands that are 2 miles apart. You can go from
Always,
Russia to the US territory in 2 hours by boat,
always wanted to
but
be
yet the
filthy.
timeline's right there and you lose 24 hours.
I always wanted to be filthy rich with my own pineapple plantation in Hawaii. I would just walk out in the field every morning and cut me a pineapple for breakfast. That's life, right? Hawaii, I'm doing okay. How are you? That's an old one there, very old.
So not everybody can agree on what year it is, what time it is. I mean, there's some states in the U.S. that doesn't go by daylight saving times. They don't change. There's certain sections of the U.S. that doesn't change. There's,
I think Minnesota is exempt from one of those. I think, if I'm not mistaken,
Arizona, parts of that. Indiana is divided up between central and the other time zones. I mean, there's little obscurities even in the U.S. as far as time zones. And
Well, that's like that old question, Gerald. What time is it? What state am I in? Right?
right, how did I get here?
Yeah. What state are you in? Oh, what time it is? Okay.
But like I said earlier, when they switched over to the Gregorian calendar, Ethiopia did not follow along. They kept going by the old calendar. And as far as business and stuff like that, they have to pay attention to what we think is as far as time and what the date is. But then in their personal lives and how they run their business,
And
they go by the
if you
old calendar.
if you lived in Egypt, you'd say, "What time is it?" You'd say it's about a half past the big pyramid.
Yeah. So in Ethiopia, they're 7 to 8 years behind our Gregorian calendar as far as years.
Yeah, Hitchcock says the Jewish are on the year 5,000 plus. Yeah, it just all depends. Time is really relative. It depends on what calendar you're using.
Then there's all kinds of theories out there, just that we've lost 300 years between 614 and 911 AD, where they think time was changed for Emperor Otto the Third and Pope Sylvester the Second, and the other one was Byzantine Empire Constantine the Seventh.
And
Those
yet,
those three wanted to be in power during the sacred year of 1000 AD. So they moved 300 years on the calendar so they could celebrate their empire in 1000.
And yet, using mathematics, you can go back in time and figure out exactly what day there was an eclipse of the sun 5,000 years ago. That's how precise you can be with mathematics. Maybe one day somebody will straighten all this out. What do you think, Joe?
It'll be an amazement if the truth ever comes out of what actual year it is and what time it really is. And
that's true, but I don't hold out any hope from ever really straightening that out. I'll tell you why. It's all politics now. You know what I mean? It's tied economically to politics, no matter which way you look at it. That's why they have such a hard time doing away with daylight savings time and all that. It's all tied up in politics. And I've said this before, and I mean it. If a comet were about to hit the Earth, and you could shoot up a ship that would knock it off course, they'd still be arguing about it in Washington when the comet hit.
Absolutely.
Don't depend on them to do anything.
There wouldn't be anybody left in Washington. They'd be all in their bunkers. There wouldn't be nobody there to make the judgment call. Don't think all these solar panels and windmills are to help us with electricity. It's to power underground cities. Their bunkers, not ours.
That's the point, not there. Their bunkers, not yours. They got theirs fixed up and ready. But that's the way it goes with humanity, really.
Yep. So I guess the original question stands. What time? What year is it? Is it 2025? Is it 1727? Is it? Did they take 1,000 years off? Did they take 300 years off? Is our calendars even right?
That's so true, Will. Maybe one day we'll get all figured out, but I doubt it. You know why? There's probably not enough time to do it, Gerald. But anyway, this has been a very interesting show, folks. Absolutely. Time. Let's use our time wisely, Roger.
That's right.
But this has been some very interesting stuff. I think there's a lesson in all this. Don't mess with time. It's not a good idea to mess with time. And there should be certain things you really should leave alone and not manipulate. And time is definitely one of those things. You got any closing thoughts on this, Gerald?
Well, no matter what time or what year it is, or the political establishment tells us for their business and their money changers, in the end, it's not going to matter to us, because when it's all over and said, time's not going to matter, because we will be eternal.
There you go, Gerald. Absolutely. Time won't be relative then anymore, will it? Absolutely. I look forward to that time, don't you, Gerald?
Absolutely. We
Well,
won't have
anyway,
time. We will be so joyous and worshiping, and we won't have time to worry about any of this other trivial stuff that we worried about here on earth.
I always like what the Bible said. One day to God is 1,000 years. That's very interesting to think about that. And if that's the case, then we have been here only about, what, a week? Coming up on a week here, a little bit over a week, man. Thank you there, Blazer has gifted 10 Hunting the Shadows.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you, Blazer.
you. Absolutely appreciate that.
So,
Thank you. Very generous. There you go, folks. Got 10 free memberships there. But here's the thing about it, Gerald. Definitely, time is a gift that God has given us to a certain extent. Let's not squander our time. Let's not waste it on frivolous things that really don't matter. We need to use our time important, because time is important. Okay. And the older you get, I'm not a spring chicken myself anymore. There are rumors, but anyway. The closer you get to your own mortality, the more you will appreciate time. That's the way it goes. When you're young, you think you're going to live forever. When you get old, you find out how badly mistaken you were, and that's time in a nutshell right there. And that's the way time eventually, I wrote this not long ago. When you're young, time is on your side. But when you get old, time turns against you.
that's right.
Becomes your enemy. Absolutely. And that's the way you gotta look at it, because that's the way time definitely is set up. But we've run out of time, Gerald. What you got planned for this week, buddy?
Well, we have the Night Owl Lounge again on Wednesday. We'll be doing hanging out with the chat and talking about cryptid history and UFO report, and just what we're just hanging out with chat, giving back to the community that's been following us, because a lot of times when we have guests, we don't really have a lot of time to spend with people in chat. So Wednesday night's all about everybody in chat. Then Friday, Saturday will be movie night again on Rumble on our Midwest Night Watchers channel, and we'll be showing some more Lost in Space and X-Files and a couple movies. And so that's Friday and Saturday. Then Sunday will be our normal Piercing the Veil.
All right. That sounds good. We'll definitely be looking for that. And Wednesday night, I've got an extra special secret mystery guest.
All
Wednesday
right.
night. You don't want to miss the next episode of Hunting the Shadows, okay? And that'll be at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There you go. That's time again, Drew. And uh, and also Friday night for Paranormal Point of View. The doorways of perception are open. That's Friday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so you be sure to check that out. And don't forget, Gerald's got a store now.
That's
You need
right.
to go do some shopping in Gerald's store.
We have
You
a
might
we have a
even,
store.
Gerald, we need to get you fix up some stickers to have you dressed as Gandalf, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and you could sell those like hotcakes. I bet you would.
We got
Gerald Gray.
our store is on Printful under Midwest Night Watchers, and matter of fact, we just added some new designs to our store. So we have some more Bigfoot, and we have space penguins, and actually, Dennis, we added the hat with the alien on the front of it that you like. So that's on our store now.
Okay, and there's the if I can get it up here. Hold on a minute. Get the either this doggone thing moves too fast or too slow sometimes. Or it may just be me. I'm a little slow too. Oh shoot, I lost the link there. Hold on a minute. Well, I had a link for your store, Gerald, and I lost it.
Well, I think I can.
Somebody will put it back in again, but anyway. There's one thing I got a really big complaint about StreamYard. You need to make your columns bigger here. It's too short and it moves too fast.
Right.
We got too much junk on here taking up room. They don't have this thing designed right. That's my problem. They need to contact me and Gerald next time and ask us how we want this designed. They never do that.
Never do that.
But anyway, check out the store and tell them I sent you, okay? You won't get a discount, but you can tell them I sent you anyway. But yeah, Thursday I will be on the Aquarius Rising Africa. We're gonna have a great show then. It's gonna be about familiar spirits. Okay, I did one on witchcraft last week. This is gonna be about familiar spirits.
Familiar
so,
spirits.
Looking for that Thursday at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, and which I think in Africa is like about 7 o'clock in the evening or something like that. But anyway, check that out as well. And should be having a show pretty soon with Danielle Diva Borazon. She's been out world traveling, so I think she's come back. So maybe I'll hear from her. We'll see what happens with that. And was hoping we get to do some more of that biblical prophecy thing that she was doing. That was fascinating stuff there. We were doing some biblical prophecy teachings and all that. So anyway, we'll be looking for that as well. I appreciate you all being here tonight. Thank you so much for all your support, for the free memberships. Very kind of you. Your support means very, very essential to us. Absolutely. And, when you live on a sort of a fixed income, everything helps, definitely, no matter which way you look at it. And I appreciate that very, very much. Thank you. And I appreciate all of you. I appreciate your support. And you are giving us something more precious than money. What, Gerald?
Time.
Yeah. And we appreciate your time very much and for spending this time with us. It's been a very interesting show. Absolutely.
Tracy is asking if there's any other good shows on tonight. And I don't know. I mean, we follow a bunch of different people, but you can always go to Dennis's catalog under his YouTube. All of his past shows or his guest appearances are there for you to watch, and some movies. On Midwest Night Watchers, you can go there and watch all of our previous shows and guest appearances.
Well, if you don't find one, there's always the libraries. Earl's got a library. I got a library. You can go there and pick out something to watch. And the good thing about these, by the way, if you know how to control the button on YouTube, you don't have to watch the whole show. If you just want to watch some of the highlights of it, you can scan through it, right, Gerald?
Right, absolutely.
You scan through it, especially on YouTube. Now I don't know how Rumble works, but on YouTube you can scan through it and pick out exactly where you want to be on that. Now you can't do that with a live. You can only do that with recordings. Okay, but you can do that. So what I like about that is, even if you go back and watch something that's already been on, you can control it, watch what you want, put it on pause, go make you a sandwich or whatever.
Right.
You are the master of the time on that one, okay, folks?
Yeah,
so,
if you want to go somewhere just to hang out and be in a chat, you can go to our Skywatch show on Midwest Night Watchers. It's 24/7. People pop in and out, and we have a community that go in there, and Jane's usually in there. Chiro Sounds hanging out. She'll say hi to you, and you can watch our 24/7 live feed from our outside cameras.
There you go. No, but now the live chats you don't have, Tracy, of course, with the recordings. You don't have the live chats. I don't think there's any show on tonight that I know of. I don't think Beyond the Box comes on one Monday night. I don't know of any of them right offhand, girl, that's on tonight except us.
Right. Like I said, our Skywatch has a live chat.
That's why we picked out Monday night. It don't interfere with most of our friends anyway that we know of. But you can go back and watch some. And also on my library, I have some movies. I got movies on there too that you can watch. Earl's got some on his Rumble channel. The Rumble channel, you can go back and watch some of the old TV series. I think you did one Dr. Smith the other day.
We did all Dr. Smith. The Jonathan Harris played all these characters and all these.
I always wanted to meet him. He looked like he'd be a crazy guy to hang out with. You know what? And they say that he was just like that in real life. He's not acting. He's acting like himself. Of course, I don't think he was a coward or anything, but I mean, that's the way he acted.
Yep. So there's plenty of movies and sci-fi shows and suspense and thrillers that you can watch on our Rumble channel at Midwest Night Watchers.
Yeah, so you got a lot of choices out there, and go check them out. Like I say, if I had the time, I would be watching them. Definitely, I would be watching more of them. I don't like to watch myself though. I don't like to go back and watch myself. What about you, George? You like to watch yourself? I don't.
No, I don't think I've ever. I mean, I might have went back and skimmed through one to try to find something, but I haven't sat down and actually watched a show.
Yeah.
I've lived it. We've been here.
Now I might go back and check what somebody said, a guest or something. But I mean,
right. That's what I said. We kind of skimmed through it to find a certain part that we want to revisit. But other than that, we don't sit and watch our shows.
Right. I wish I had the luxury of the time of being able to sit down and watch a lot of them, because I'm missing a lot of good ones, I know. But anyway, that's why our libraries are there. So always feel free to use them. They're absolutely free. Don't cost you any money. And all it costs is time. And you can go check them out when you get a chance. And what's good about it, you can also, put your earpods on. And even if you don't watch them, you can listen to them. While you're doing work, walking around, or whatever you're doing out, cutting grass or whatever the situation is, you can still listen to them, just like radio. Yeah. So that's good too, So you got a lot of different ways to come at it. So go for it, And
if you do go back and watch our playlists or past previous shows, please go ahead and give us a thumbs up on the old shows too, please.
Yeah, I got a good movie. I got a good movie on my library there. Seduced by Evil. It's got Suzanne Summers in it. She runs into a brujo, which is really what you want, a skinwalker. That's a great movie, by the way. It's a very good. It's a TV movie. I like these rare movies, Gerald, that you can't find just anywhere. You know, and the TV movies are hard to find.
Yep.
You know, certain places have them. One of the biggest places you can get them is Tubi. That's my favorite. Tubi channel, which is free. You can listen to it and watch it on your phone wherever you want to go. You just download Tubi. They got a bunch of these old TV shows and movies on there. You can watch Dark Shadows. They got them all on there. You don't. Here's what you're and I getting at here, folks. There's a whole lot of 99.9% a bunch of low down sorry trash out there, but you got the choice. You don't have to watch that trash. We're offering you some good stuff, the good old stuff to watch here, okay? And what I told Gerald the other day is this is like a vintage wine. Who wants that old grape juice when you can have the real good vintage wine? And that's what these old movies and TV shows are all about, right, Gerald?
Right.
The good
Absolutely.
stuff. And you don't have to put up with this woke crap and you got all this. You know what? Somebody asked me the other day, I don't know about you, but it's been years and years and years since I actually walked in a movie theater and sat down and watched a movie.
Yeah, me too.
I
think
care to do it.
I think it had to be when our kids were still here at the house.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a bunch of trash. There's nothing. And if they didn't have the F word, you wouldn't know what there was. I mean, if they blinked out the F word, you would have no dialogue at all. You wouldn't know what they were saying, okay? Of course, you wouldn't know what they're saying using the F word. But anyway, they don't care. It's just trash, folks. And what me and Gerald have been telling you all along, you keep putting this trash in there, it's going to accumulate, and pretty soon your head's going to be full of, Gerald?
Trash. Trash in, trash out.
That's exactly the way it works. So you got to show us, though. You don't have to go that way, you know. That's like somebody asked me the other day, I don't have anything to watch on TV. What are you talking about? You have 100 years of movies behind you. Movies and TV shows. What are you talking about? You don't have anything to watch. That's crazy.
Back when movies were great.
But anyway, that's my rant for tonight, okay?
All right.
Well, we appreciate you all being here, and it's been a fun show. We're thinking about moon mysteries for next week. The mysteries of the moon. That should be it.
Right.
There's a lot of
made out of cheese.
Absolutely. Like their one question is, according to science, well-known rocket science, they should never have ever been able to travel to the moon. Did it really happen? We'll talk about that next week. That'll be next week on The Road Less Traveled. Okay. We appreciate you all being here tonight. And we thank you so much again, like I said, for your support and spending your time with us, because time, after all, is one of the most precious things we have. So we thank you all so very much for being here. And until we get together again, walk in the light, okay? And don't fear. Don't live in fear. Walk in the light. Faith over fear, folks. Absolutely.
That's right.
Yep. And until we get together again, then, folks, Godspeed and bon chance, bon ami.
Night, everybody.